Let's compare then the church personnel on Paul's first missionary journey as opposed to his second missionary journey. On Paul's first missionary journey, one group of 3 people left Antioch. There was the Apostle Paul, who has been in Jerusalem. There's the prophet Barnabas, who had been sent from Jerusalem. And there's their assistant, John Mark, who had lived most of his life in Jerusalem. Sent out by Antioch, but all 3 of them closely linked to Jerusalem. Now in Paul's second missionary journey, there wasn't one group of 3 people, there were 2 groups of 2 people who left Antioch. Apostle Paul and prophet Silas. Prophet Silas was even more connected to Jerusalem than Barnabas was, who accompanied Paul on his first missionary journey. And then the other group was prophet Barnabas and assistant John Mark. Now, how did this change in personnel come about? Why didn't the same 3 people who began the first missionary journey go together on the second missionary journey? The answer is, it came about through an argument. An argument in the church. An argument between office bearers of the church, no less. An argument between an apostle and a prophet. An argument between the very 2 men who had laboured together so successfully and closely on Paul's first missionary journey. This argument was not about doctrine. Good job too. This argument was not about the 2 Christian sacraments or about church discipline. In other words, it was not an argument about the essential things in the church, the marks of a true and faithful congregation. It wasn't that. It wasn't stakes so high. It was an argument about personnel. Missionary personnel. The personnel who were to go on what we now call Paul's second missionary journey, but that wasn't what they called it at the time. The argument was about a 3rd person, John Mark. Should he come with us, Barnabas' position, or should he not, and should he just stay home, Paul's position? And Paul's arguments against John Mark's coming with them can be reconstructed from Acts 15 verse 38. Paul's first point was, look, he departed from us at Pamphylia. There we were, in the middle of our mission work, and he left us and he went home. Only partway through the trip, he didn't even make it halfway. And second, similarly, flowing out of this, he didn't go with us to the work. He pulled out. He's a quitter. He was supposed to be helping us in the labours, but he didn't like it anymore, and he just went home. How can you work with somebody like that? We need somebody solid. Somebody who's going to start and finish. Somebody who's going to stick with it. We've tried it, and it didn't work. Paul's argument against John Mark's coming, therefore, rested on John Mark's clear track record. It was based on what he had done or not done in the past, which track record reflects upon his character. We can't bring him with us. Difficult work, responsible work, sent out from a church, advancing the kingdom of heaven. We can't bring him with us because the man has a basic lack of stickability. And you want proof? He quit. He went home on us. This man lacks the courage of the task. When the going got tough, after the unpleasant confrontation with Bar Jesus, the Jewish false prophet, on Paphos in Cyprus, lo and behold, he went home. How do we know that this is not going to happen again with John Mark? How do we know that this young man has learned from his mistake? In verse 30 it states that Paul thought it not good to bring him in. He didn't say it was sinful. He didn't say it was wicked. He didn't say, well, John Mark quit and that proves he's an apostate, that he never really was a believer. No, he's a believer, but he hasn't the necessary qualifications to go with us on this mission work. It's not good, in light of events, recent events, to bring with us a man who made it less than a third of the way through the first missionary journey. Now, we're not told specifically what were Barnabas' arguments for taking John Mark, but we do read this, verse 37. Barnabas determined to take with them John, whose surname was Mark. He was determined. That is, he wanted it, he wished it, he desired it. He was determined. So here we have the clash. Barnabas' will or desire, John Mark must come with us. Paul says, no, it's not good. The man left us at Pamphylia and he went not with us to the work. And so at this point, the former harmony between Paul and Barnabas as missionary fellow workers and now over missionary personnel becomes contention between them. The AV says sharp contention, literally sharp feelings between these two men over John Mark's coming or not coming, and the result was that the two men separated. Not into two new denominations of church split, but rather they separated in their working. So that one group will do missionary work here, and another group will go elsewhere. So now, it's not just that Paul won't have John Mark with him on the second missionary journey, but now Barnabas won't go with Paul either. And I should add from other scriptures that there is one other possible factor in Barnabas' determination to bring John Mark. According to Colossians 4 verse 10, Barnabas and John Mark were cousins. Now, Acts doesn't mention this cousin thing, but it is a fact from Colossians 4 verse 10 that John Mark and Barnabas were cousins. And so this raises the question, was it in part family issues? Kinship, blood being thicker than water. Someone putting their family connections above what was best for the work. That's a question. An open question. And these things too can cloud judgment and bring strife in the church and among office bearers. And among office bearers regarding church missionary work and church missionary personnel. That is one very probable, I judge, way of reading the events here. Oh, he's my cousin. He's my relative. We grew up together. We're close. I just know he is the man, and I feel loyal to him, and I must stand up for him. But what you need to do in a position like that is forget about the family ties. That has nothing to do with it. The one issue is, and upon this the case must be decided in its entirety, the one issue is the merits of the case itself. The qualifications, the track record, the character of the person, without regard to family ties or special relationships.